state of the Union and ordered to be printed. Mr. Doden, from the Committee on Ways and Means, submitted the following report to accompany H.R. 7260. The Committee on Ways and Means, to whom was referred the bill H.R. 7260, to provide for the general welfare by establishing a system of federal old age benefits, and by enabling the several states to make more adequate provision for aged persons, dependent and crippled children, maternal and child welfare, public health, and the administration of their unemployment compensation laws, to establish a Social Security Board, to raise revenue, and for other purposes. Having had the same under consideration, report it back to the House without amendment and recommend that the bill do pass. Part I. General Statement. Contents of Bill. This bill provides for various grants in aid to the states, establishes a federal old age benefit system and a Social Security Board, and imposes certain taxes, hereinafter described. Title I. Grants in aid are to be made to the states for old age. To persons who have reached the age of 65. In making these grants, the federal government will match what the states put up, within certain limits. Title II. A system of federal old age benefits, payable to people who have reached the age of 65, will begin in 1942. These benefits are to be measured by wages, and are payable wholly regardless of the need of the recipient. Title III. Grants in aid are made to the states, to pay the administrative costs of state unemployment compensation systems. The H.I. Report. S15, 74 II. Asterisk 4-9-85. To the Social SECU Biddy Bill. Amounts authorized should be sufficient to meet these costs, and no matching is required. Title IV. Grants in aid are to be made to the states to assist them in giving aid to dependent children. In enacting these grants, the federal government will, within certain limits, put up 1/3 of the total amount paid in the state for aid to dependent children. Title V. Grants in aid are made to the states for aid in their services relating to maternal and child welfare, the care of crippled children, and vocational rehabilitation. Most of these grants are to be made on an equal matching basis. Title VI. Grants in aid are to be made to the states for developing their public health services, and authorization is made for the Public Health Service to carry on its investigatory work. Title VII. A Social Security Board, which is to be an independent agency in the executive branch of the government, is established. The board is to have 3 members, holding office for 6-year terms. Title VIII. An income tax, measured by a certain percentage of wages, beginning with 1% in 1937 and increasing to 3%. By 1949, is levied on in-ost wage earners, with certain large groups, such as domestic servants and agricultural laborers, exempted. An excise tax, measured at the same rates on wages paid, is levied on employers, with similar exemptions. These taxes first take effect on January 1, 1937. Title IX. An excise tax is levied on employers of 10 or more persons, with certain exemptions, measured by 1% of wages payable. For 1936 and increasing to 3% by 1938. This tax goes into effect on January 1, 1936, and is first payable a year later. Credits against the tax are allowed for contributions which the taxpayer may have made to state unemployment funds under state unemployment compensation laws. Title X. This title contains general definitions and miscellaneous provisions applying to the whole Act. History of legislation. Legislation on the subject of Social Security was promised the country. In a presidential message of June 8, 1934, he said, "Our task of reconstruction does not require the creation of new and strange values. It is rather the finding of the way once more to known, but to some degree forgotten, ideals and values. If the means and details are in some instances new, the objectives are as permanent as human nature. Among our objectives I place the security of the men, women, and children of the nation first. This security for the individual and for the family concerns itself primarily with three factors. People want decent homes to live in, they want to locate them where they can engage in productive work, and they want some safeguard against misfortunes which cannot be wholly eliminated in this man-made world of ours." Subsequently, the President, by executive order, created the Committee on Economic Security, composed of the Secretary of Labor, Chairman, the Secretary of the Treasury, the Attorney General, the Secretary of Agriculture, and the Federal Emergency Relief Administrator, instructing the committee to study the entire problem and to make recommendations which might serve as the basis for consideration of legislation by the present Congress. The Committee on Economic Security devoted 6 months to this study, in which it was assisted by a staff of specialists and by 14